Hello, my name is Rachel Wallis, and I'm a junior in the Bachelor of Musical Arts program at CCPA, studying voice and women's and gender studies. I'll be sharing work I completed over the past semester under an Office of Student Research Fellowship mentored by Associate Professor of Music History Tom Kernan. In my project, Outing Opera, I created a YouTube video essay about the opera tradition of castrati and the importance the castrati repertoire holds for transmasculine opera singers today. The inspiration behind this project was addressing a larger question that has been on the minds of many music professionals for a long time: how to make opera more accessible. In this presentation, I'm going to discuss the process of making my initial video essay using some of the principles of Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, to provide one potential answer to this question. What is a video essay? Educational content on YouTube was popularized by John Green and Hank Green, who began creating YouTube videos January 1st, 2007 on the channel Vlogbrothers. In 2011, they founded Crash Course, which featured a series of educational videos on history by John and a series on biology by Hank. Today, the channel has published over 1,275 videos on a wide range of topics, including organic chemistry, theater history, and linguistics, and over 12.1 million people are subscribed. The Crash Course videos usually range from 10 to 15 minutes in length, feature bright, colorful animations, enthusiastic expert presenters, and a professional production value. In contrast, video essays are long-form scripted educational videos that grew in popularity throughout the 2010s. These can range from 15 minutes to just under 3 hours, but are usually around 30 to 45 minutes in length. These videos are produced by a wide range of creators on an even wider range of topics, and vary widely in production value and style. Popular topics are film and television criticism, politics, music theory, and philosophy. While some video essays are based solely in the creator's opinion, the creators that inspired my project use the platform to share scholarly research from their fields in a free, accessible, and entertaining way. Lindsay Ellis captures the spirit of this genre of videos in her biography on her merchandise website, which describes her as a video essayist with degrees in film from New York University and the University of Southern California, who conveys the knowledge she gained at these great institutions so her viewers won't be burdened with student debt like she is. Abigail Thorne also describes her channel, PhilosophyTube, as giving away her philosophy degree for free. Why video essays? The short answer. The short answer is that I personally go to YouTube to learn about subjects such as philosophy, in which I don't have any educational background and are a little too daunting to want to approach on my own just by picking up a book on the subject. I also watch video essays on subjects I am familiar with, like gender studies, to get other people's takes on discourse happening in the field, and music theory as supplemental study materials to accompany lectures and readings for coursework. Why video essays? The long answer: content marketing. The question of how to make opera more accessible is on one hand a question of how to get as many people as possible to want to listen to opera, or buy tickets to a performance at their local opera house. Essentially, how to market opera effectively. With this in mind, the educational videos I produce are a form of content marketing. Described by former executive director of the California Symphony and founder of the Center for Innovative Leadership at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music, Aubrey Bergauer, as a type of marketing that involves the creation and sharing of online material such as blogs, videos, infographics, photos, GIFs, etc. that does not explicitly promote a brand but is intended to stimulate interest in its products or services. In a blog post advocating for classical musicians to embrace content marketing, Bergauer cites a study that found that consumers are 131% more likely to buy from a brand immediately after they consume early-stage educational content. While I am not working to promote any specific opera company, I do want to stimulate interest in opera more generally, and as Bergauer points out, there are literally centuries worth of intriguing stories from classical music that can and should be used to promote the art form. So these video essays intend to do just that. Why video essays? The long answer part 2. Universal Design for Learning. Universal Design for Learning has been developed since 1984 by CAST, a nonprofit education research and development organization in Boston, Massachusetts. It is a pedagogical framework rooted in educational research, educational psychology research, neuropsychological research, and brain research that seeks to remove barriers to learning from students by diversifying learning materials to meet the various needs and learning styles they have. In an article published in Disability Studies Quarterly, Jan Wilson describes UDL as the best example of the application of the social model of disability to educational approaches. In contrast to the medical model of disability, which understands disability as an individual problem, affliction, or a limitation needing to be overcome through hard work, pluck, and a great attitude, the social model stresses that people are disabled primarily by environments, policies, and attitudes that fail to accommodate and include the vast array of human particularities, which include disability but also differences in gender, race, class, sexual orientation, age, and a host of other factors within varied environmental contexts. CAST's website provides guidelines on how to create learning materials according to the UDL principles, which argue educational materials should include multiple means of engagement, the how of learning, representation, the what of learning, and action and expression, the why of learning. It is important to note that UDL guidelines are not prescriptive. Instead, Louis Lord Nelson describes adopting the framework as a continuous practice. There is no point which one can complete UDL, but one should aim to adopt as many of the guidelines as are feasible and applicable to them as possible, continually aiming to remove learning barriers. In making educational content promoting opera and aiming to make the art form more accessible, I found that YouTube video essays provided a medium through which I could easily apply the UDL guidelines. In the next section, I will share my analysis of some of the ways popular video essayists' content have followed the UDL guidelines and some of the ways I implemented them in my own video, Sacred and Sexual, A Queer Feminist History of Castrati. For the sake of time, I will discuss only the first 3 guidelines in this presentation, but video essays can and do apply all 9 principles. How popular video essays implement UDL principles of representation. YouTube videos are especially effective for providing multiple means of representation of materials, which is the framework containing the first 3 guidelines of UDL, providing options for perception, options for language and symbols, and options for comprehension. The first guideline, Provide Options for Perception, requires providing information to students in multiple ways, including visual and auditory, to not only ensure that information is accessible to learners with particular sensory and perceptual disabilities, but also easier to comprehend for many others. On YouTube, one way to provide options for perception is creating detailed, accurate captions for videos, ideally in multiple languages. YouTube is equipped with an automatic captioning system. However, because of variations in the speed of a speaker's voice, a speaker's accent, and the use of topic-specific jargon, these automatic captions are often inaccurate, and therefore the information conveyed remains inaccessible to non-hearing audience members or audience members who do not share the language of the speaker of the video. Until 4 months ago, YouTube allowed community members to add captions, which allowed creators to rely on multilingual fans to translate their videos into different languages. Unfortunately, YouTube recently disabled this feature. Natalie Wynn of ContraPoints continues to work towards accessibility through captioning by writing English subtitles of her videos herself and accepting translations of her videos by community members through email, which she now uploads herself as well. When creating Castrati, I wrote a script of my video which, when filming, I recited almost verbatim. This made the process of captioning the video much more efficient because I was able to send my transcriptionist the script, which he could then use as the basis of the captions, only needing to double-check the video itself for variations from the original script. Another way to offer alternatives for auditory information is through providing charts, diagrams, images, B-roll, and other visual representations to illustrate spoken ideas. CAST specifically mentions providing visual and/or emotional description of musical sound and interpretation of that sound. Many channels are dedicated to explaining music theory concepts, and Corey Arnold's channel, 12 Tone, and Patricia Taxon's channel exemplify this way of sharing information about music. In their video essays about music theory concepts, such as Taxon's How to Write 4-Chord Loops, A New Theory of Pop Harmony, and Arnold's My Brand New Take on 4-Chord Loops, and I Guess I'm Not Done with 4-Chord Loops, a response to Patricia Taxon, use animated graphics to illustrate the way they perceive harmonic progression in 4-chord loops and popular songs. The visual illustration of the loops, coupled with the animation visually representing sonic movement through a loop, makes the musical analysis more accessible to visual learners. In my video, I created charts to represent the differences between 17th and 18th century perceptions of gender and 20th and 21st century perceptions of gender, which accompanied a written description for them by Roger Freitas that I read out loud. Additionally, UDL calls for providing options of customization of visual elements. While in a YouTube video, viewers do not have many options of customizing the display of the video, I made an effort to include many iterations of the charts, illustrating different aspects of the information I wanted to emphasize. By keeping some elements of the chart consistent throughout their different iterations, typeface and font color, graphic illustrations representing different gender identities, I was able to draw connections between where the same gender identity is situated in a gender hierarchy in different time periods. Audio and visual cues also work in tandem to highlight quoted material. It has become increasingly common practice for video essayists to employ other creators to read quotes in their videos to clarify to a listener that the text being read is not the essayist's own words, but a quote from an outside source. This is evidenced in Lindsay Ellis's recent Tracing the Roots of Pop Culture Transphobia, in which she analyzes harmful representations of transgender people in film and in J.K. Rowling's Troubled Blood. In this video, Ellis features a different voice actor for each type of quotation, such as direct quotes from Rowling, quotes from Rowling's prose, and quotes from individual creators in the book. By combining visual representation of the text and the speaker, Ellis includes screenshots of the entire quotation being read, and the audio cue of hearing a voice that is not Ellis's. Information about quotations and their sources are clear to audiences that are accessing the information visually, orally, or in a combined manner. Additionally, it is important to indicate quotations and captioning using quotation marks. Because my video was independently produced, I was the sole narrator. However, I included both visual, graphics with the entire text, citations, and spoken, the phrase, according to, indications of quoting material in order to make clear this source of information. The second guideline for providing multiple methods of representation is to provide options for language and symbols. This is a guideline in which YouTube videos are most useful because the wide variety of videos by different creators in different styles, long and short form, narrated over animation, talking head style, or Socratic dialogue, on similar topics means that users can see creators whose content speaks to their learning style, or watch videos on the same subject by multiple creators to benefit from the varied ways creators display information on the same topic. Creators can implement many aspects of this guideline within one video, however. The first checkpoint in this guideline is to clarify vocabulary and symbols, which is the entire mission of many educational YouTube channels, especially ones dedicated to explaining music theory topics to non-musicians. Sideways does this particularly well in his videos, which are primarily about film scores but sometimes address opera. In Why Mulan 2020 Didn't Work, Sideways defends his point that Mulan didn't work by detailing musical storytelling structure back to its roots in opera. Sideways perfectly follows the guidelines of clarifying language and symbols by linking the unfamiliar, seemingly complex vocabulary of opera to the more familiar vocabulary of Disney movie musicals. The second checkpoint in this guideline is clarifying syntax and structure, which can be done by highlighting structural relationships or making them more explicit, making connections to previously learned structures, and making relationships between elements explicit. Sideways does all of these in his explanation of opera. He breaks down the formula to operas, recitative followed by aria. He connects them to previously learned structures, musical theater song structure he had explained in previous videos, and makes the relationship between the different components of opera and their correlations in musical theater explicit. In doing so, he also adheres to checkpoint 2.4, promote understanding across languages, by translating Italian musical terminology, which is both literally in the non-dominant language of his target audience and is domain-specific vocabulary unfamiliar to non-musicians, to English in a clear, concise way. This brings us to the final guideline for providing multiple means of representation, providing options for comprehension. The checkpoints in this guideline seem to be embedded into the core of all good video essays, supplying background knowledge, highlighting patterns, critical features, big ideas and relationships, guiding information processing and visualization, and maximizing transfer and generalization. This guideline differentiates video essays from the shorter crash course style videos, which are also educational but, because of their brevity, cannot fully delve into every big idea, piece of relevant background knowledge, and pattern relevant to a topic. The crash course videos explore topics with breadth and depth, but over a series of several short videos rather than in one long one, which again points to the value of having multiple methods of representation of this content. If a person prefers to watch shorter videos, those are available, and if a person prefers longer deep dives, those are available too. An essay that exemplifies this, and one of, if not the most watched video essays on YouTube, is Natalie Wynn's Incels. In this essay, which at the time of writing has over 4.1 million views, Wynn provides a deep dive into one of the darker internet communities, that of the involuntarily celibate, or incels, which is a community she describes as mostly heterosexual men, centered around forums like incels.me and r/braincells, who, for the last few years, have been churning out mass murderers faster than Marvel can make Avengers movies. The description of this guideline pertaining to comprehension on CAST's website emphasizes the purpose of education is not to make information accessible, but rather to teach learners how to transform accessible information into usable knowledge. While Wynn expertly follows UDL when she clarifies the syntax and language she discusses in this video pertaining to this niche subculture, gives an in-depth history of the community's growth, highlighting critical moments, and guides the learning process through progressively releasing information in a well-organized manner with lots of audio and visual examples, the most important feature of this essay is its ability to affect the real-world lives of its viewers. The guidelines of UDL relating to knowledge transfer largely apply to students being able to demonstrate the knowledge they've gained in classroom situations, such as tests, presentations, and essays, but in this case, Wynn's ability to educate effectively in a way that aligns with UDL has life-saving implications. By the end of Incels, she traces the ideology of the involuntarily celibate community to its suicidal endpoint, and connects it to a catastrophic worldview she describes as a masochistic epistemology. She follows her analysis of this culture with providing resources not to help with exams, but to a tutorial for blocking websites from your computer, because that's the only method that worked in helping her escape toxic suicidal online communities that promote digital self-harm. The comment section on her video was full of former incels thanking her for helping them to realize the toxicity of their community, some even crediting her with inspiring them to leave the forums, and others still crediting her with keeping them from ending their lives. Because her video was so accessible in format, presentation, and platform, and because she used a social model to analyze the problems faced by incels rather than blaming individuals for their struggles, she was able to reach a large audience and convey knowledge that tangibly changed people's worldviews and lives. Conclusion and future steps. When I proposed this project, I had hoped to create several video essays throughout the semester, but I quickly learned how labor-intensive this process is. The 17-minute video took over 100 hours of work to research, write, film, and edit. After researching professional video essayists' workflow, I discovered that they often have teams that assist in their editing, filming, and writing process, working full-time to produce one video each month. While this medium does require an amount of labor that might seem superfluous to scholars pressed for time in a publish or perish culture, the reception to Castrati proved that this work is worthwhile. Had I published this work as a traditional paper, maybe a few colleagues or professors would have read it. But on YouTube, over 400 people watched the video. Several friends have reached out to me to let me know they had no prior interest in opera, but after watching my video, they were looking forward to attending one when theaters open again. Queer friends, colleagues, and strangers have let me know that sharing this queer history of opera has made them feel represented and validated in a culture that often rejects our community. I am grateful for this opportunity to experiment with digital public scholarship, and I am looking forward to creating more videos in the coming year under a Performing Social Justice Seed Grant. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day.